Welcome to another programming breakdown. We have a great week of training. I know last week it seemed like there probably wasn't much of a down day, and it really was intentional. Um, so as I kind of mentioned in last week's meeting or in last week's video, Coach Sam, Coach Millie, and I have connected on kind of our plan for programming over the next year, actually. And so when you think about programming and you wonder maybe kind of the why behind the way we do things, is that in CrossFit programming, constantly varied functional movement performed at a relative high intensity. That constant variability, there's still a method to the madness. And I think that that's a lot of the reason why we've been so successful with keeping our clients healthy, keeping our clients progressing. And that's ultimately why they stay with us. And so there's always a plan in place, and I hope that these videos kind of give you a little bit of a peel back the curtain a little bit to what we do and where our brains go with this. But it's definitely a collective effort. So um, this week kind of marks an emphasis on a new phase, if you will, of what we're focusing on in our training. And if we think about like an annual plan, whether you did the open just as a, you know, jumping in the intramural open with a team and it was your first time, or whether you just qualified for the quarterfinals, congrats, Coach Ali, and accomplishing that, or you have a goal to, compete in CrossFit, or maybe just do some local competitions. There is a kind of a structured plan in the way that we kind of phase in programming to keep us kind of our bodies changing and adapting and developing. And then it also aligns with the seasons that we're in. We find that people want to, maybe they want to trim down a little bit before summertime. Why? Because they're maybe going to be at the pool a little bit more, or they're going to be in a summer, a sundress, or they're going to have their shirt off mowing the grass, like whatever it is, right? And then we get into the wintertime and it's like, well, I've got sweaters on and I'm a little bit, I'm not going to be going out and running because it's cold out, so we phase in these things even around what the seasons are, and then also phasing in and out of training phases based on holidays, right? So, we know a lot of people are going to be taking vacations around the 4th of July. They're going to be gone for a weekend of hanging out with family and not training, and maybe eating and drinking not the normal phase during Memorial Weekend and Labor Day weekend. So we can kind of phase in things, the holiday season, right? A lot of people are going to be less active in the winter months between Thanksgiving and Christmas because of holiday parties and end of the year programs and plans and deadlines and all that. So that being said, as we phase into this new, what I would say an emphasis or a focus, we're going to be looking at developing basic strength. Okay, we're going to do that a lot of different ways. Whether that's through the barbell, through kettlebells, through sandbags, like change up those implements, but we're going to be focusing on the main things of hinging. Okay, so that's pulling, deadlifting, squatting, pressing, right? Pulling, right? So those are the kind of the ways that we're going to phase in these basic parameters. We're going to build basic technique, and those basic techniques then lead us down the path to develop more advanced techniques and intermediate techniques and advanced techniques. And those will kind of phase throughout. And that's how the people that want to learn the snatch and the clean and want to get better at the snatch and the clean, well, if you don't have developed basic strength and developed basic positions, then you can't do the more advanced skills. And so that's why we kind of phase these things through. So this week kind of marks our starting point in about an 8-week phase here, and you'll see that a little bit in coach's notes as well as we talk about things. So I'm going to run down here. I've just done our programming timelines for our staff, and so I am fresh on this and ready to rock and roll. So starting out Monday, we are starting out with a toe to bar, double under, and push press complex here. So this is a 5-round interval type work. So we talked about interval work and how this is beneficial. So for you that are working on performance, practicing movements, okay, and refining the pieces of the movement every single round. We're working on negative splits here too. So this is teaching you pacing as well. How do I fine tune the details of pacing? How do I slow down 12 toes to bar? How do I slow down 50 double unders? And then how do I speed those things up? How do I breathe through exercises? So those newer clients that are like working on just learning the skills and building capacity, this is a great workout for you because you get to work hard and then rest, right? And so that's building up our capacity to do hard work, but then give our body recovery versus like if we take that rest away, then you're constantly working over those 5 rounds. So we've got a 5 rounder, 12 toe to bar, 50 double unders, 8 push press, resting 90 seconds between. That should be a pretty reasonable rest time. And then you're going to be aiming for what we call negative split. So I'm trying to get a little bit faster every round. Now, if you're old like me, I do that naturally because usually by round 5, I'm warmed up, right? So this is a great one for me too because I don't feel like I have to be so warm in round 1. Like kind of ease in, kind of get the wheels greased a little bit as we go there. So a couple of options there. Then we're going to finish off with some hollow holds, 30 on, 30 off, real quick finisher there. On Tuesday, we got a massive strength day. So deadlifts, 5x5 with pauses there. More than likely not going to be much higher than that 60 to 70%. And the reason is because the time of the pauses will take care of the work. And then when we remove those pauses, that's when we really start to hammer out big weights. You won't see a testing scenario of 1 rep and 3 rep maxes over the next 8 weeks. You won't see that really till summertime because again, we're going to be building the base to do that testing. And 8 weeks is not a long time to practice movements and then try to test on them. Most strength phases, if we were doing like a true strength phase, which we don't necessarily in CrossFit because we're trying to keep you constantly varied, but those would last like 16 weeks, right? So that's just not enough time to be like, hey, we're going to really test and see this massive improvement in your deadlift. So what you will see is some massive improvement in 12 to 16 weeks when we get into summertime. Got some goblet squats, got some Turkish get-ups. Those Turkish get-ups are huge. I mean, the more and more I train my clients, the more and more I really believe that, like, man, getting up and down off the ground is so important. So those are key there. Shoulder stability, shoulder mobility and range of motion there to get that arm overhead. And then we got some banded hamstring curls and some hollow rocks. A lot of work getting in there. That's a huge day. And then that's going to carry us into the rest of the week where on Wednesday, we're going to have a little bit of a deload. And so a little bit dialed back. And this is where you really start to understand what training is versus just like beating the crap out of your body. So we've got a kettlebell 50-50 press that's going to be focused on some overhead pressing with a different implement, really concentrating on that rack hold. So like, again, think about like what we did a few weeks back or a month ago. We did some rack holds. We did single arm rack holds. We did double arm rack holds. Now you're going to do that rack hold. Now you're going to press the bell overhead, right? Developing that pressing strength or that rack position is only going to continue to help you out as you move back to the barbell and press it overhead. And then we're doing every 2.5 minutes for 5 rounds. I love this one because this is like a strict strength, what I call a strength bias conditioning piece. So your heart rate not necessarily will get real high here because it's low RPM. So 5 push-ups to max ability, 100-meter farmer's carry, 5 strict pull-ups. So this is an opportunity to really like advance the skills and really challenge your strength of the movements, right? So if I want to get better at 20 rep or 10 rep push-ups in a conditioning workout like Saturday's was in the partner workout, then I've got to be able to do 5 push-ups really, really well and be strong with that, right? So I encourage those of you that like are kind of in between push-up parameters. I just worked with a client on this last week. They were like, oh, I use the 24-inch box. And then I was like, no, you don't. Not anymore, you don't. Like, you don't need that, right? And they're like, well, why? Well, it depends on the workout, right? Now, maybe if they were doing 30 or 40 reps per round in push-ups, maybe they use a 24-inch box to modify. But in a setting like this, like you should be almost at the floor because they could almost do a full push-up without any assistance, right? So push the parameters on this workout. Same thing with the strict pull-ups. Push the parameters on these workout to get better. If I always do push-ups at the 20-inch box, no matter what the rep scheme is, then guess what? Doing push-ups in the 20-inch box will never get you to the floor, okay? You've got to eventually like push yourself down, okay? So that's what this workout really can entail. And you're going to see some of these, what I call strength bias conditioning pieces in the workouts because we're building the base to then go high rep, high intensity, and really fast, right? The high RPM stuff. So Thursday, aerobic capacity day. This is the first time I've done aerobic capacity day in about a month. And so kind of building the base back of the pyramid. So when I think about the base of the pyramid, I believe cardiorespiratory endurance sits at the bottom of that, right? Okay. And so we're building the engine. Okay, we're making the engine larger, and to make the engine larger, it allows us to do all the other stuff really well. So I've gone on a couple of different soapboxes on cardiorespiratory endurance. If you've sat in any of my classes on that stuff, so important. We build our cardiovascular system, we build our respiratory system, and those are the engines that build everything else. Okay, those are the engines that need to be maintained for long time, lifelong function. Those are the engines that need to be maintained for performance. Those are the engines that need to be maintained for fat loss and muscle building, all that, right? So um, that work there is going to be kind of baseline. One of the things I want to highlight here is the fast pace should be what you can do in a 2K. Your coaches are going to have a chart that they can pull up for you, and I may even share that chart so you can kind of check. So, like for example, if coach says my fast pace should be the fastest I can maintain a pace for a 2,000 meter row. Okay, well my 2,000 meter row, like if I'm just on fire, is about a 720 or a sub 720. That equates to a 150 per 500 meter pace on the rower. So in my fast pace, I should be maintaining that 150. Now, could I maintain 150 meters at a minute 45? Yeah, probably. But that's not going to be helping me work on the capacity work that I'm trying to build there. Doing this aerobic capacity work for a performance athlete, this is like learning your paces. This is understanding paces. This is building discipline and developing discipline. For those of you that are newer athletes, this is a great opportunity for you to practice the movements of the rower and build technique. For those of you that are the in-betweeners, like, hey, I'm just looking to be, more functional for my life. Okay, well, I've already explained that. Like, then you're building your cardiorespiratory systems to do that. But building cardiorespiratory systems happen at different paces than trying to go all out on a row in a 4-time workout, right? So you need to trust and understand those paces because it's the intent and it's working the systems necessary in the body to build those systems, right? So if I go too hard, I may be tapping into the wrong system. If I go too low or too slow, I may be tapping into the wrong system. And then lastly, for those of you that are trying to, burn more calories, burn more fat, maintain muscle tone, well, this is all effective too for your, helping your metabolism. Okay. So after that, we're going to be doing a little 6-minute like mobility AMRAP. Please understand the goal here is to develop the corners of your range of motion. So if you're someone that like struggles with that, my hips are just tight in the bottom of the squat, perfect. If you go overhead and you're like, I can't quite get my arm to my ear, right? Perfect, right? So these are developing the corners of our range of motion. And when we develop and build the corners, that helps us stay in those really tight positions in the bottom of the squat, in the top of the snatch, in the, all of those pieces, right? So it's not about the score, it's about developing the range of motion necessary, okay? So the real main event is the aerobic capacity work. This is just kind of like a deload finisher there, okay? Friday, we're going to go back on the sandbags. We've got sandbag cleans, Russian swings, and some body weight rows, okay? So if you've never done this, these are supine bar rows. Great opportunity to build some capacity in your pulling strength. And I actually if you're someone who is, maybe you're a tweener on, you do strict pull-ups and kipping pull-ups, but maybe you even want to tap into like the chest to bar pull-ups, or if you're someone that's done like the jumping chest to bar pull-ups in the open, this is a great developer of this pull here, okay, which has to happen when you go to do a chest to bar. Most time when people do a chin over the bar, your elbows are down. When we do chest to bar, we have to pull our elbows back. So this position here, when we go to these banded, or not, I'm sorry, read something on the screen. But when I go into that pull on the bar, that is actually going to help me develop that pull back with my elbows. So great one there. Quick 30-second rests in between this one. So this is not as much like the 30-second rest is much more to like transition and take a quick breath. It is not much of a recovery piece here. With the 5 sandbag cleans, I think you can go a little heavier on this. You can challenge yourself on the 5 sandbag cleans. The Russian swings, we've done a number of these in a couple of different settings over the last few weeks. So you should pretty well know kind of where your capacity is on this, but don't be afraid. Like if you've been crushing the kettlebell swings, or what I always love is like when somebody's doing a Russian swing, but the bell's going like between their head and the ceiling, right? Well, then that's probably too heavy or too light of a bell. Like let's bump up. You shouldn't be throwing the kettlebell through the ceiling on those Russian swings. And then we're going to finish off a little bit of little bit of show muscle work, some tricep extensions there. If you want to think about like the comparables here, we do a lot of pulling in the conditioning piece. So it's cleans, right? So I'm pulling with the bicep. I'm pulling here with the biceps and lats. Even with the Russian swings, that I consider that a pull. And now we're just going to complement that with a press. Okay, so we're just going to develop the backside of the arm there. And then the sandbag holds, just working on some time under tension work, holding those sandbags. Don't be afraid, even if you go a little lighter on the sandbag, like then bump up on the holds or something, right? Challenge yourself. Again, it's kind of similar like what I talked about in the Wednesday work, is that if we never like holding a 50-pound bag for 45 seconds for the next 6 months will never bump you to holding a 70-pound bag for 30 seconds. Like it's not going to build up unless you build up. Okay. And that may take an opportunity to be like, oh man, I didn't quite get the last set of 45 seconds. Cool. There's no penalty here, right? It's just training. And you only have 2 sets of that too. So, and then lastly, on Saturday, really like this workout. A couple of things to this workout is we've got burpees. It's 12 rounds for time. You're alternating with your partner, so you do get some scheduled rest in there. But 9 burpees and then 8 ground overhead. This is light. 95-65 is like our top weights here. And so what you need to think about that is like, if I have 95 pounds on the bar, that means like that is literally a warm-up weight essentially. Now I might take one step to that, but we don't need a lot of prep there. And that should be a weight that you can stay pretty unbroken on. The other thing here is a ground to overhead means that you have a choice between doing a clean and jerk or doing a snatch. Now, the snatch is the more efficient way to get the bar from ground to overhead, but it's also a more complex way. So if you're not as comfortable with that movement, you can always do a clean and jerk. But you'll notice that in the warm up, you guys will probably like, you'll prep either movement and you might want to make a decision on, okay, like I'm going to probably go clean and jerk. For the person that's a little bit newer to the programming, that's probably your best option. For those of you that are a little bit more advanced and you want to push the envelope with pace, snatch is your best option there, but it still should be like, this should not be like do a snatch and drop the weight. It should be like continued motion on the snatch. And then you're going to finish off with a 2,000-meter row. I would opt to look at your paces for your fast pace on Wednesday and do that fast pace on Saturday when you do your 2K row. Even though you might be a little tired, you're really only going to have to row about 1,000 meters if you split this correctly with your partner. So that one's a tough one and a kind of a two-parter there. The thing I'll also share with you is like what you're seeing is this is what training is. Okay. Training means that there is a structure and a plan and a method to the madness. But the only way we can benefit from that is if every time we go into the gym, we are gaining or gathering data. Okay. And you're gathering that data. You use your app, use a note on your phone, use a notebook. I don't flipping care how you do that, but you got to gather data. Because like I said, like there's like 3 things in this week's work that all work with one another. And so if I'm learning from that, like even when I did the Saturday partner workout by myself in the garage, I'm still paying attention. What's every round did I come off the rower at with my 400 meters? Okay. What was my pace at? What am I trying to hit there? I'm trying to maintain this. Did I do my deadlifts unbroken? How many double unders did I miss? How did my shoulder feel when I did my push-ups? Like I'm just gathering information, and that's just the way my brain works. In when I'm thinking about these things, it makes me a better coach, but it also makes me better at training, at working on these things for myself. And that doesn't mean because I'm like trying to perform at the CrossFit Games. That's just me gathering information to get the best out of my workout when I go to attack these movements again. So if you don't know what your fast pace is on the rower, then on Thursday, figure that out. And then on Saturday, utilize what you learned on Thursday and implement it into the workout, and you'll get a better workout on Saturday because of what you learned on Thursday. Okay. So I know it was a longer video, but a lot of knowledge bombs here. I really hope you guys are taking advantage of these videos. I'll be honest with you, I've spent about 3 hours collectively between timelines and then putting these videos together for you guys and thinking through these things. But that's how important this is to me for you guys to get the best out of your workout and for our coaches to deliver the best product to you on the floor. So not only is this an important video for you guys, but my coaches listen to this too, and they watch it because they want to deliver their best for you guys. So hope you guys have a great rest of your weekend. We got a soccer game to attend this afternoon, and we're going to get ready to head to church. So have a great one, and we'll see you guys in the gym.